Hello, we are going to start this shorthand marathon where we will dictate as many as dictations all together so you can practice. So, starting in 2 seconds, the transcription number 2. I should like now to make a few observations on the budget. This budget marks a turning point in the history of our country. It is no use attempting, as some of my friends have done, either to deprecate the budget very strongly or to suggest that we are not witnessing a new revolution in our methods of fiscal training and technique. I want it to be quite clearly pointed out to my friends that we are now facing the lean year of Indian finance. Either to we had revenue surpluses which were a form of public saving and which were meant to be utilized for capital development. Hereafter, this form of revenue surplus would not be available. We have therefore to find out ways and means of implementing our great program of national reconstruction at minimum cost. My point is that the deficit on revenue account would be of the order of about rupees 19 to 20 crores. Here, let me point out that I do not agree with those of my friends in the finance department who have attempted to suggest that rupees 9 or 18 crores which are obtained from Pakistan should be put to the revenue side of the budget. They are to be put on the capital side. What that does not seriously alter the trend of my argument. What I am suggesting is that we would have to be prepared for a deficit of a much higher order even on the revenue side. That itself should make us realize that there are very many problems which we have to face and that we have to undertake ways and means of increasing the resources of our country so that it might be possible for us to have a greater amount of surplus or a greater amount of public saving for the purpose of financing capital development. The finance minister, in the course of his speech, Mr. Deputy Minister, pointed out that the deficits during the past 2 years were of the order of rupees 83 crores. I venture humbly to disagree with him because I feel that when we are talking of deficits, we must take into account the overall deficit incurred by the central government, and that would be of the order of rupees 200 crores. During the years of relatively light expenditure, we had a shortfall of about rupees 200 crores. Undoubtedly, now when we are going to have a very great amount of expenditure, we might have a greater amount of deficit, and we would have to find out ways and means of trying to meet our capital expenditure. Some members have pointed out that deficit financing is good. Others have pointed out that it is poison. One honorable member who preceded me pointed out that it could be taken like a tonic. Now, I am not willing to enter into merits of deficit financing or demerits of deficit financing in an academic spirit. The time has now come when we should face realities. I do suggest that we have to indulge in deficit financing because without indulging in deficit financing, it would not be possible for us to indulge in capital expenditure on such a large scale. But when we are talking of the scope of deficit financing, I would like to place before the House and the Finance Minister the two great limitations which face us. The first limitation that faces us is that concentrating the internal price level. The Honorable Finance Minister referred to the cost of living. He said that he was going to keep a watch over the cost of living so that it may not shoot up within a short period and make a mess of the plans of capital development. But there is another limitation which has also to be borne in mind, a limitation which has not received as much notice as it should have done in all the discussions that have taken place on the deficit financing. That limitation is the external limitation or the limitation which arises on account of our balance of payments position. I think this is as important, Mr. Deputy Speaker, as the internal price label, and I should like to elaborate that particular point a bit more because I feel that a time will shortly arrive when we might have either to reconsider our policy or might even have to leave the Sterling Club of which we are a member. The second serious limitation is as serious as the first. What would be the consequences of financing on our balance of payments? The finance minister, in his budget speech, points out that so far as the balance of payments position is concerned, they have now, whether it is by accident or design, a favorable balance, and they have contributed about rupees 63 crores to the dollar pool during the past 6 months. But the moment we indulge in deficit financing, we have to be prepared for worsening of our balance of payments. Transcription number 3. I am thankful to you for having given me this opportunity long last to say a few words on the budget. Already much has been said, and I think the finance minister has come in for his share of congratulations as well as criticism. So there is not very much to say, but I should like to say a few words. The increased development expenditure and the absence of any new taxation has earned for the budget a good response even from the businessmen. I especially welcome the relief given to the middle classes by raising the exemption limit of income tax in respect of personal income. No doubt this is some relief to the middle classes, but I would request the finance minister if he could to raise this exemption limit from rupees 4,000 to rupees 6,000, as that would give substantial relief to the middle classes. I am indeed glad that the Taxation Inquiry Commission has been appointed with Dr. John Mathai as the chairman, and I am sure that many of the vexed problems may be solved through this commission. At the same time, I would request the finance minister to put off the estate duty bill for the present since the inquiry commission has been appointed and they may go into this question. For I feel that it is not an opportune moment to put on more taxes on the people. Already, as Mr. Gadgil has pointed out, there are so many taxes on the people. The people are overburdened by taxes and they are just trying to recover their stability. So, in regard to estate duty, I would ask him to consider about it. My reason for asking it to be postponed is, as I have said, that the people are still facing economic distress and then our government is not able to offer the amenities which other countries have where the estate duty exists, such as free compulsory education for children, free medical aid, homes for the poor and the destitute, old age pension, etc. So, my humble suggestion is that this point may be considered by the Taxation Inquiry Commission. I agree that there is a brighter side of the picture and that instead of continually harping on our poverty, we should also see the bright side. We are making encouraging progress towards laying the foundation of a welfare state. With the cooperation of all and the implementation of the 5-year plan, I am sure that we should be able to lay the foundations and fulfill the dreams of India. It is indeed encouraging to know from the finance minister that there is a tendency of lowering food prices all over the world, and in that case the prices in our country too would be lowered. Regarding defense, for obvious security reasons, I do not agree with my friends who say that the expenditure should be curtailed. It is not advisable to take any undue risks and slacken the defense arrangements. Indeed, defense is one of our valuable assets, although strange to say there seems to be adverse opinion in some quarters. I agree with what General Cariappa once said that God and army are remembered only when there is trouble. The army consists of the most disciplined and loyal set of young men. I would not be proper to effect economy in the pay of these brave officers, as it would not be an incentive for the right type of young men to join the army, and it would become ineffective and inefficient. I believe already officers who were drawing rupees 1,400 as their pay are now getting only rupees 700 and about rupees 100 as allowance. That is, they are getting about half of what they were getting before. It is very hard for those officers on field duty to establish separate establishments for their families and for their children, and I would specially appeal to the finance minister to see that the family allowances may be restored to those officers who are on field duty. Economy in army could be effected in other ways. There is a scope for more efficient operations of defense industries, which process seems slow, and by purchase policy of utilizing goods and stores indigenously manufactured. Preference should be given to country-made bar materials such as could be produced here and they would be cheaper than foreign made goods. I may also suggest that the armed forces who are not on field service or under any operational commitments could be utilized for giving military training to the youths in schools and colleges, which would teach discipline and loyalty. The university authorities should make military training as part of their compulsory education, just as they have adopted social, domestic, and political sciences. The National Cadet Corps is already inculcating military training in some universities, such as Bombay and Kolkata. What if military training is made compulsory for our university students? It will go a long way. Transcription number 4. Sir, the Essential Commodities Act was passed 5 years ago, and when the finance minister yesterday came with an amending bill, we expected that he would give us a brief report on the working of this measure for the last few years. But unfortunately, we are kept in the dark in regard to the exact working of the Act and the nature of the difficulties the minister is facing. Sir, as far as I know, many of the provisions of this enactment have been observed more in violation by his agents at the state level. The food minister may be very earnest, may be very able, and may be very anxious to see that the various provisions of the Act are implemented in the most effective manner at the state level, but unfortunately, his agents at the state level are not equally enthusiastic or equally anxious to observe the provisions of this enactment. The most important objectives of this enactment are to control the supply and distribution of commodities and to maintain a stable price level. In regard to both these aspects, I am afraid that the government has failed to realize the objectives in view. Some time passed when there was scarcity of food grains. Attempts were made to make procurement from certain wholesale merchants and from rice mills. In my own state, I know of many instances of such procurement where, after making known that certain things had to be done and certain steps had to be taken by the merchant community, nothing was done later on by the government when they found that these very orders of the government were violated. As a result of the violations, there was a consequent rise in the price of food grains. In respect of other commodities like iron and steel, paper, etc., we see a lot of speculative activities, but the provisions of the Act have not been brought to bear on them. Perhaps no case of prosecution was launched against those people who contravened the various provisions of the Act. We are interested to know in how many cases the government have taken steps to prosecute individuals who have violated the various sections of the Act. The minister said that the powers under the Act were not adequate. We sympathize with the food minister. What I wanted to know what action has been taken in this regard by the various state governments. In regard to amending provision, I want to know from the minister what would be his difficulty even if minor offences are taken to courts of law. For instance, the Motor Vehicles Act deals with various offences, both major and minor, and various minor offences under the Act are taken to courts and people are prosecuted. What is the difficulty in taking these cases of a minor nature to courts of law? There, the people have some safety that they will get a hearing, and if the offenses are really offenses, then they would be prosecuted. Otherwise, they will be acquitted. Here, the minister says that there should be a security deposit. If there is a violation of a particular provision of the enactment, then the executive authority will have the power either to confiscate a part of the amount or the whole of the amount. We are clothing the executive authority with more powers. I do not grudge giving powers to executive authority provided they are used properly and effectively and in a most fair manner. But unfortunately, there have been discriminations apart from the ineffectiveness of the various provisions. Wherever these provisions were used, there had been discriminatory use of these provisions against a few or in favor of a few. Normally, when offenses are clothed with more powers, there is large scope for corruption. I feel that it would be desirable to avoid such malpractices, and it would be desirable, I think, that even for minor offenses, the parties should have a chance to defend their actions. I do not think that this problem of dealing with minor offenses will become complex or complicated in any way if we take them to courts of law. I want in reply from the minister in what way he is suffering from a handicap in dealing with minor offenses or offenses of a technical nature. The honorable member made the point that even if this thing was acceptable to House, he did not know what amount would be demanded as security. So the minister should tell us what amount is normally expected from a licensee in all cases and what the offenses are which are of a technical or minor nature which he has in view. We are not told which are major offenses and which are minor offenses. Clarifications on these points are necessary. I wish that the act which came into effect long ago was implemented properly. I know that the minister here is very earnest in implementing it, what his colleagues at the state level and at the central level are disappointing him. So these were 3 dictations altogether. These are for practice purposes. So this can, when we practice all together some of the exercises, it gives us confidence that we can write as many words as we can. But for the regular exercises, we should always transcribe them. This gives us chance to understand and analyze our mistakes and improvise them in the coming dictations. Thank you.